Hello, I'm Christina, aka Spooky Queen Casey, on social media, and I'm here with the director, writer, and actor of a movie that I saw this past week at the Phoenix Film Festival called Itch. And I will open it up to you to introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Bari Kang. Like she said, I'm the writer, director, actor. Way too many things.
I love it though. I love the film personally. I didn't know what to expect with it. I don't want to like give too much away in case other people want to see it, but
Yeah.
I didn't look too much into it aside from just the little plot. And I honestly really enjoyed it. It was probably one of my favorites at the festival.
Oh, thank you so much. That means a lot. A lot of love went into that film, and I think it comes through.
Yeah, that's the thing and I think I even said it in my review. I could see the emotions in the characters, and I could just feel like how emotional like the film was, even though it's in like the horror category, it still brings so many like emotional feelings.
Yeah. So this is my third film, my third feature
Okay.
film, but it's my first stab at horror. And if you check out my previous films, you'll see I'm usually very interested in characters.
Hmm.
I suppose that's my strength, and I didn't want to lose that, even though I was going to a different genre. And I think the best horror actually does has those elements. So I wanted to kind of be in that category. I didn't want to just do a horror for horror's sake, you know?
Yeah. What genre is your other two films in?
They're both thriller dramas,
Okay.
crime thriller dramas, a very Tarantino, Scorsese-esque kind of films, but with ethnic bents to it. So it's basically like a Mean Streets kind of film, but with ethnic characters. Like I explore the world
Mhm.
of Indian immigrants a lot in my
Okay.
in my films, and even in Itch, there's a little bit of nod to immigration and
Hmm.
all that.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, has it been shown at other film festivals before?
Yeah. So we premiered at Dances with Films. We
Okay.
played at A Night of Horror, where Itch won Best Feature. We played at Another Hole in the Head in San Francisco, where Itch won again. And
Congratulations.
thank you. And honestly, the Phoenix Film Festival and the International Horror Sci-Fi Film
Mhm.
Festival was amazing because I didn't know, I didn't know how the reception was going to be there. You never know if people are going to show up, and it sold out. So
Hmm.
that was pretty awesome, and I think the community is really strong. So that was a great screening as well. And then we're playing at Days of the Dead in
Okay.
Indiana. So they have the horror convention and the festival. So
Hmm.
that's our next screening, and we have some others lined up, but they haven't been announced yet. So.
Perfect. And how do you think how'd you feel seeing your film with a festival audience?
It's great because especially when you go somewhere where you don't know anybody,
Hmm.
because though that's the real audience. Those are people who are coming out paying to watch your work, and more than spending their money, they're spending their valuable time, 90 minutes, 2 hours of their life that they're not going to get back. And usually the audiences at festivals tend to be way more into the whole cinematic art form.
Hmm.
So it's a lot more appreciative for the filmmaker, and it feels really good. It feels really great to watch alongside people that are, genuinely going to watch the film and tell you how they felt about it, and so that's always great.
Yeah, and I'm sure seeing that the Tuesday show was sold out, I'm sure that like probably tugged up the heartstrings too.
Yeah, it feels good. Look, I always tell everybody I'm not making these movies for myself,
Hmm.
I'm making it for an audience. I want them to react to it at least, whether in a good or a bad way is not in my hands. But you want that at least. You want a reaction, and so when something catches on, it does feel really good. So yeah, it was great.
Absolutely. Can you tell us a little bit about kind of what drew you to make Itch, especially since you were doing crime and thriller movies? What drew you to horror specifically and the Itch idea?
So the idea for Monica, my wife,
Hmm.
she's my wife in real life. Olivia's my daughter in real life. I'm not sure if you knew that, but she's
I
always
could
been
tell
telling
the
me,
resemblance.
yeah, she's been telling me we should do a horror, and you end up kind of pigeonholing yourself sometimes. Oh, but I do this, I do that, and that's I think a lot of creatives do that. Oh, but I'm good at this, but I'm only good at, and that's just kind of fear talking. And then I was inspired by something that happened in my store. So that scene with the crazy customer who can't stop scratching, something like that happened in the store, and that's actually our store as well. So everything in this movie, I mean, I think I own. I mean, I don't own Monica and Olivia's,
Right.
but like the store and whatnot. So something crazy happened in the store, and it sat with me, and I said, "Oh, that's so cool." And this was post COVID, and I was
Hmm.
like, "Oh, there could be like a virus thing," and it just sat with me, and uh, I wanted to do a horror at this point because I've heard so many great things about the horror community.
Hmm.
And I said, you know what? Let me just write this film, and whether it turns out to be horror or not is besides the point. And because it's not a conventional horror film, I think I
Right.
blend genres in this one as well a little bit. I think it's like a horror thriller drama, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so this one inspiration just started to morph. And as I started working with the characters and getting my own voice in there, it just kind of took off and it became a feature film. And we decided, yeah, let's make this movie however we can. And that's what we did.
Awesome. I know you said that kind of just seeing like you had a real kind of a real life experience, like a customer coming in. Um,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what gave you the idea. Was there also like horror movies or like scenes that you
Yeah.
see in horror movies that kind of also inspired like Itch?
Yeah, definitely. So I knew of horror. So the funny thing is, I hadn't seen The Night of the Living Dead. And I also hadn't seen The Mist until after
Hmm.
I wrote this script. And the
Hmm.
script was written, and I was like, okay. Then I was like, wait, let me find movies that might be similar to this.
Hmm.
So I'm not, kind of because otherwise, I was afraid I might fall into the trap of, uh, you know, taking too much inspiration, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to kind of put my own spin on the zombie virus
Yeah.
genre. But yeah, the biggest inspirations then ended up being Night of the Living Dead and
Hmm.
The Mist and 28 Days Later and things like that. And all of them, they're very unique in their own respect. And I think what Itch does is the itch aspect. I think we
Hmm.
haven't seen that. We haven't seen that. Not that we haven't seen that before, the way that the infection or the virus or whatever it is spreads. And I thought that was unique. So I kind of latched onto that.
I agree
But
with
those
that.
those are my three biggest inspirations for
Yeah.
this film.
I completely agree. Because I feel like I saw inspiration too with those movies, as you said, but at the same time, there is a different spin on it. And I 100% agree. And I see that in the film too. And I really liked your take on it, like with that genre of or subgenre of horror.
Thank you.
Um, is there any like theme or messages that were important to you while making this film?
Yeah, yeah. So it's all of my stuff usually ends up being about
Hmm.
uh, family trauma, and redemption that has to do within the familial kind of circle. And in this one, I leaned. So I'm a young parent. My daughter was 7 when we made that film. I started writing it when she was 6. It took me about a year to write, not to write, but to actually get the script to a place where it was ready. So it took about a year. So she was about 6, and I have a son too. And I struggle as a creative. You're always playing these crazy scenarios in your head. Oh, what if this happens? What if that happens? And when you're writing, I'm like living these things in my mind, and I can't tell the difference between what's real and what's not anymore half the
Hmm.
time. So I was interested in exploring my fears and insecurities as a parent, and having the responsibility of these little children. And I think that uh, is what I wanted to explore as a theme. And that's what I so besides the virus and the zombie aspect of it, it's really about a father and a daughter and how they both, take care of each other and kind of get through a family trauma together.
Yeah.
And so that's what I was. That's it's never too late. I think in the end you realize it's never too late to kind of start again or make things right or whatever it is.
Yeah, for sure. So going in with that, without really giving too much spoilers, is there a scene that you feel like you're especially like proud of, whether it's like emotionally, technically?
Yeah, yeah. So the scenes with my daughter, I
Hmm.
really love those scenes because they were so emotional. I didn't have to, being an actor, I didn't have to work as hard
Yeah.
because it's my child.
Yeah.
And usually getting to a place like that is not easy. So there's some heavy scenes in the film, as you saw. Some tough decisions are made, and then when it's actually your child in real life, the at least in this situation, it really kind of tugged at my heart. And in fact, it would work the opposite because it's also a craft. You don't just show up and start acting or whatever,
Mhm.
being real. But you also have to work within the parameters of film. And sometimes I found myself getting really lost once or twice in the character. I said, "Oh, gotta take a step back," because we're also making a film here. So I thought that was really interesting. Yeah, the scenes with my daughter were incredible. Not just because this is the first time I got to work with her on screen, but just feeling those emotions. It was just so raw and and overwhelming, I guess, at points. And yeah, those were my favorite. Yeah.
And how did your daughter feel about like doing that? Was that her first time doing acting then? If this was your first time working
Yeah,
together?
yeah. This was her first time on camera. She's never acted before.
Hmm.
She's a performer. She's always been a performer. Even as soon as she was walking and talking, she was always just performing for everybody, whether it's just dancing or doing ballet rehearsal or piano recitals. So she's comfortable in front of an audience.
Yeah.
And I think as in for to be a successful actor, that's probably the biggest hurdle to overcome is getting in front of that camera.
Hmm.
Or sometimes the camera can be even more daunting than a live audience. And I knew she could do that. And then the rest, I think kids are just so expressive and so good. You don't really need to work with them too much if you can get the right circumstances around them. And then her being my daughter, it was just that much easier to communicate with her and to get she kind of showed everybody up. So and also she doesn't speak in the film.
Hmm.
Originally, the first draft. So I never wrote for her. It wasn't like I was writing a role for my daughter. No, it was a very different character, a lot more outspoken, a lot more rambunctious, and a lot of dialogue. And then when I decided I'm going to cast Olivia, the reason I cast Olivia was half out of necessity and half because I wanted her to be in the film because it was the lockdowns during that time. Not the lockdowns. It was the strikes. The
Okay.
Hollywood strikes were going on. So I was like, I want to make this movie, and I'm gonna put my daughter in it. And so then I revisited the character and I kind of rewrote the role for her. And I'll do that if I know who's playing the actor. If I know that person
Hmm.
personally, I'll put their personality into that character because why not? They just had it's just another opportunity for them to be real. And so I went back and I said, maybe Olivia doesn't talk because of this trauma, and that honestly that worked great. One, it helped her, and two, it relied on showing instead of telling, and she does a lot with her eyes and her expressions, and yeah, so it was a really great experience.
Well, I think she did an incredible job. And I think even like a no dialogue can be so much harder than dialogue because it's all
Yeah.
about your face, your body, your emotions. Like you have to show more than just talking.
Right, right.
She did amazing.
Thank you. I'll let her know you said that. She'll be
Yes,
happy.
please. Um, what would you say was your biggest challenge during production and how did you overcome it?
Uh, the biggest challenge. I don't want to say the usual stuff like, oh, I didn't have enough time, I didn't have enough money, which is always true. No matter how much time you have or how much money you have, it seems like it's never enough.
Hmm.
You know, like you talk to filmmakers, oh, I only had 10 days to shoot. Oh, I only had 30 days to like what? And then somebody else, oh, I only had 100 days to shoot. So it seems like it's never enough. It's never enough time or never enough money. I suppose my unique hurdle here was kind of overcoming the trope. We kind of talked about this a little bit.
Hmm.
Was how do I make not just another genre zombie virus film? You
Hmm.
know, I didn't want it to just be another one. So I was constantly looking for opportunities to kind of break that mold. Like, okay, you know, is it the characters or where they're from or the way what this thing is? And I think that was probably the biggest hurdle is how to keep the film fresh and alive and different enough that people would be interested in checking out another genre film, you know?
Hmm.
And then of course we honestly actually the cliche thing is we actually we didn't have a lot of time because the budget was limited. I decided to shoot this film in half the number of days I'm used to filming features in, and usually you think you get more days as you progress, but no. And then the confined space, I think that was another big challenge is, you know, when it's primarily one location, how do you keep that interesting? And then we solve that puzzle by basically it's one big department store, but
Hmm.
there's different areas to it. So giving each place its own vibe, and so each part of the space became a character. I feel like so like
Hmm.
every time, you know, people tell me, oh, whenever the basement shows up, I get like, oh my God, you know, well, what's gonna happen here now? So like, you know, the basement becomes like a villain, or like in the office between the more tender scenes that takes on its own look and feel. So that was another challenge that we overcame, I think. So yeah, those are some of the challenges.
Yeah, for sure. So speaking of you were saying like being on a budget, certain budget and stuff like that, and having to work with budgets with movies and stuff. Was it difficult or how did you approach like building tension and scares being on a certain budget that you had?
So I think relying on real things. So everything was practical. People think there was some special effects in there, but it was all practical effects. And what I realized, you know, it's like Kiss, like keep it simple,
Hmm.
stupid, you know. I kept thinking about that when we were doing things. You know, I was like, no, let's just keep it simple, keep it simple, keep it simple, because those things you can pull off. And then to make it even better, to make those things land even better, I relied on my experience with characters and getting people invested in these people where you actually care if someone's going to get hurt.
Hmm.
So when they do get hurt or if something terrible happens, I think it's just that much better. Something that money and budget can't buy,
Right.
you know, is the character. You can have all the kind of glitz and glamour, but if nobody cares why it's happening or to who it's happening, you know, what's the point? It's not like scares for scares, right? So I kept those things in my mind. You know, keep it simple and raise the stakes for everyone. So when things do happen, they land stronger. And then another thing I tend to do in my films is I keep some things off screen. Like you know what's happening, but you don't see it. Uh,
Yeah.
and and our minds fill in the blanks, and sometimes that's the worst because we're all probably imagining like the worst aspects of it happening in our brains and our minds and our hearts. So
Hmm.
that was a kind of tool that I used a couple of times throughout the film, and that seemed to work.
Yeah. Nice. Is there anything that happened? I know it was filmed in your department store that you guys said like that's actually your department store, right? It's not a
Yeah, yeah.
city.
It's
Um,
family
did
business.
anything like unexpected happen on set, like funny moments, creative breakthroughs, anything like that?
Uh, yeah, definitely. So what one thing that was challenging was we shot in the summer, and we it there was a heat wave during when we were shooting, and the AC broke in the store, and it was like 99 degrees, and we're in New York, very different than Arizona. It's like 99 humid,
Humid,
right?
yeah.
So everybody's drenched, and I'm like, oh man, everybody's soaked. But I said, you know what? This is going to be great because half these, there's an outbreak going on.
Hmm.
So everyone would probably be sweating and scared anyways.
Hmm.
And then another thing is just like seeing people glistening on screen. I don't know if you noticed, I'm sweating the whole time.
Hmm.
Not like in the beginning, but once
Right.
things start getting a little funky and this outbreak starts happening, like most of the characters just sweating. So then what I decided to do was after a certain point, I said, you know what, from now on, I told my makeup artist, I was like, everyone's gonna be sweating from now on. So even when the AC started working, we were just spraying everyone with sweat because it just looked so great on camera. And then also it raises the tension and you're like, why are these people sweating? Are they infected? Are they
Hmm.
sick? Are they scared? Or, like what's going on? And then just being sweaty as a character and an actor, you're like, it kind of puts you in another space as well, the physicality of it. So that was something that was born in on set. It's like, after a certain point, I just decided from now on, everyone's going to be sweating.
I mean, I think it's a good idea because I would think even if this was something that happened in real life and I
Yeah,
saw like if there was an itch breakout or something, I saw someone sweating in my head, I would think, oh, they have it for
right,
sure. Like,
right.
so I think it works with the movie.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm curious because I feel like again, I don't want to give too much away, but I feel like the ending could have doors open, or there could even be like something that like how it started. Do you have ideas of like continuing the story, either a prequel or a sequel, or is this just
Yeah.
one time?
No, 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 definitely not a one time. I
Okay.
do have some ideas about what you said, maybe how it started or how it continues.
Hmm.
But right now, I'm just kind of, testing the waters with this film. Like I said, I want to make these movies for the audience. So if there's an appetite for it, I would love to continue the story and see where it goes and what can happen with it. But yeah, I think you're right. It's the ending was ambiguous,
Hmm.
and and yeah, it certainly is just started. So there's definitely a lot of room to explore there. Itch too, itchy.
So I know you said that you're still showing in festivals and things like that. So is there any plan after festivals for it to come out like digitally or anything like that, or is that
Yeah,
in the
no,
works?
of course, yeah. We're gonna definitely get the movie out to the world and hopefully have a wide release, and so that people that are into the genre and that would appreciate a film like this will have a chance to see it.
Perfect. And then I just have a couple more questions. Do you see yourself staying in the horror genre now moving forward, even aside if it's not Itch 2 and you do other movies?
I'm really starting to fall in love with this community and this genre. Even the writing of it, of this particular script. It could also just be that my craft is improving. This is, like I said, my third film, so with each film you get better. I'm still learning a lot, but writing this film was very enjoyable. You can just be, I don't know if I'm explaining it the right way, but you can be more creative maybe because you're literally creating the world from
Mhm.
the ground up. and as long as you can get the audience to buy into that world, you can kind of go bonkers about what happens and why it happens, as long as it's kind of, you create those boundaries and those rules. It's a lot more, I found it a lot more enjoyable crafting this story. And yeah, I definitely plan on making more genre horror films. Definitely.
I love that. I know I'm not trying to be biased, but I know the horror community is pretty good. Like from what I've seen and the people that I've met, I feel like it's really great. And the whole movie genre, like the whole movie itself, like community is awesome. But I just personally love the horror side of it. And I think you did great on this film. So I'd be so curious to see like other routes that you go down within the horror genre.
Definitely, definitely.
So how has the like festival experience been like so far now since it has been showing for a couple of them now and is still showing them? How have you felt with it?
I think it's going really well. I mean, we've played some great festivals, very respectable festivals. We've won a few of them, and it's still continuing to get programmed. So I think, and especially because there's so much product out there,
Hmm.
even in the horror space, there's so many, talented people just making movies nowadays.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't want to say it's easy to make movies, but it's easier to at least get your movie made than it was, 20, 30 years ago. So it's very competitive. And seeing that the film, that Itch, has been getting a lot of love, it's great. It means, there's something there. And festivals are the early curators of films. So if they're appreciating the work, that means, there should be further audiences down the line. So yeah, it's been going really well. So I'm really happy and grateful for that.
Perfect. And then I did miss a question when we were talking about the casting. Like we know you have your wife and daughter in it. How'd you go with the rest of casting the rest of your people?
So we didn't have a casting director on this one. I've used them on my previous films, and
Mhm.
they're wonderful. But on this one, again, just to keep it in budget and keep it under kind of in-house. Also, like I said, it was the strikes.
Mhm.
So everyone in this film is non-union, believe it or not, but they're all wonderful working actors. And I think I tend to, so we cast it ourselves, Monica and I. She's fantastic at that, and we went about it just like any other professional casting director would. We held auditions, callbacks, the whole deal. And my thing with casting, though, is I usually look for the actor who was could be that character in real life. And so that there's some. Uh, So, what am I trying to say here? Yeah, basically, I try to look for the character in the actor that I'm casting, so we don't have to create that character from the ground up. So these people have, a lot of the personalities and traits that I wanted my character to have. They tend to have, and that was also being in front of the screen myself and directing. We work beforehand, and so there's not too much time to be working on set while we're filming. Nobody really has that luxury in indie films, so you want to really get the actors that are going to come in and nail it. So, and a lot of that has to do with casting.
And I think they did a great job. I think all of them did a good job with it. And then lastly, where can people follow the film's journey to kind of keep up with where it's showing in festivals, maybe release date, all that?
Yeah, of course. So basically, our Instagram page is the place to go. It's itch 2025, and then I'm at Bari Kang 1, numeric 1, on Instagram as well. So you guys can find the film at itch 2025. ITCH 2025.
Perfect. Well, those are all the questions I had. Was there any thing else that you wanted to put out there or something that I might have missed or anything like that?
No, I think you actually covered all the bases. No, it was great speaking with you. Thank you for coming out and supporting the film and reviewing the film. Definitely appreciate it. So we'll take all the love that we get.
Yes, thank you so much, Barry. I truly appreciate it. I really enjoyed the film. I really enjoyed the festival. It was my first film festival in person, so it was such a fun experience. It was the first one I saw, and again, it was like one of my favorite ones that I watched. So, really good job, and I can't wait to follow and continue seeing where it goes.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.